What's good with it in the hood with it? Welcome back to the Collective Clips, where you already know we toss it up around here, right? But before we get into it, let's get into the intro. For reals though. Welcome back. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate the support, man. I'm very humbled by it. Hector, bravo. The whistleblower, right? That's what they're calling him. The whistleblower, because he's blowing the top off the whistle. Hey, he's official like a referee's whistle, right? He's I call him Hector the defector, but not in a bad way, right? I respect that man. I should call him Hector the respecter. I respect that man to the fullest, but that man is definitely being looked at by different groups in different situations because he is explaining exactly and breaking down how bad Gavin Newsom's California model was and is and was again, and exactly how it was while he was basically doing time. As a CEO, you're doing time. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Yes, they get to go home. Yes, they get steak. Yes, they get a little tas, whether they get it from behind or the front. That's their prerogative. They could do what they want to do, right? But a correction officer is doing time right in that same prison right along with you. And it's just as dangerous, maybe even more so dangerous for them as it is the convicts, the inmates, especially when the convicts take over. And how do they say it? The inmates are running the asylum. That's just how it is. Now, Hector has played his part on social media. He has let people know his stance and why exactly he left the CDC, why exactly he didn't pull the Mac on him. He did the only thing he could do. He turned his back on him. And according to his story, and I seen his story on Vlad TV, man, great interview. By the way, I can't stand Vlad just because I think he's up to no good. But Hector is, this interview that he did, this latest interview, was very much different than the first one he did. He was a little bit more free with the boca on the first one. With this one, it looked like his answers to the questions were very methodical and thought out. He had a very patient conversation, very patient answers. And that's exactly what you need to have when you're answering these critical questions, because the CDCR is a monster. Okay, the CDCR, there's a lot of proponents, a lot of different pieces that play into that. And at the end of the day, just like anything else in life, it's all about money. And according to Hector, it's all about clout, and it's all about money, and it's all about these guys within that system. And I'm talking about the COs and the counselors and all that, them getting into an office, them getting a promotion, they don't care what happens. Now, this California model that he broke down was a trip, right? And I could see where people are like, he's a whistleblower because he's putting on blast just exactly the ins and outs behind the scenes of the corruption of the COs and CDC. Now, no one's making this man do this. This man is to be respected and to be looked at like, hey, you know what, Hector, you did that, man. He's holding people accountable. He's letting us know what goes on, just how fucking scandalous and unrighteous it is. I've only been on one side of the fence. I only know about the robber. I don't know about the cop, right? I know about going into prison, surviving, trying to survive, maintaining, programming, doing whatever the fuck I had to do to get up out of there, whether it be a pegada on the yard, whether it be functioning with the homies, whether it be, just doing my time and doing college courses or going to church or whatever prison lays on your lap, you got to rock with it. Okay. You have to do your program. But it's crazy to hear the stories that Hector is explaining about the behind the scenes on how the COs feel about the inmates and what is actually really literally happening. Now, some of the things Hector says, I agree with 100%. Okay, some of the things are new to me. So as I watch him break it down, I'm like, wow. I always thought or thunk it. I always thought this is how they felt or what was going on. It's obvious the majority of the COs are just there for a paycheck. But just to hear the way that they have a lot of shit going on behind the scenes, it's just a trip. It's something I think we needed, and I'm glad that Hector is willing to do it. Now, there's some people that are like, hey, he's snitching or he's telling. He is a civilian. Okay. He was a peace officer. Now he's a civilian. He's a veteran of the military. And I hear he's going back. Respects, man, for signing back up, for going out there, for maintaining the dignity and having pride and going out there and fighting for our country so that we're able to do what we do. I respect all military veterans to the fullest. Anyone who puts their life on the line or their time, gives their time to the armed forces for our freedoms and our liberties, I respect it, man. If I could go back in time and do it myself, I would, but I can't, so I won't. And that's just how that goes, right? I went to basic training, but it was the Norteño military basic training. And guess what? I got discharged dishonorably. Guess I couldn't make the cut. But I'm glad to hear that Hector is going back. I'm glad to hear that Hector has made the decision in his life to go back to a structured military and hopefully, man, get whatever he's seeking, because I understand, man, I've had homeboys in the military. Once they go, they get that, that brotherhood and they meet good people, and they become more diverse in their thinking and more gamed up and more educated into other people's styles and what the structure and the rigorous training that the military provides. They like it. It becomes second nature to them. And I've seen a lot of guys go crazy without it. They want to go back. I'm glad that he's getting what he wants. If he does enlist and go back, respects for that, man. You're doing your thing. Now, with Hector Bravo and this California model, breaking it down, he hit some key points, man, that I wanted to point out. See, I've been saying for a very long time, since this end of hostilities happened, and the end of hostilities with the four major factions in the California prison system, the four organizations, the big four, right? And then everyone else falling in line in suit, when it started with the hunger strikes, when it started with the lawsuits, I already knew, and I've said it before, that CDC was going to be very disgruntled with the decision that the courts made. The last thing any CEOs, the administration wants is to feel like they've been played or that the inmate got over on them. Okay, it's the same thing. Like Hector Bravo has told stories. He told a story how he was in a day room. Some dude who he had good rapport with kind of threw out there like, hey, man, if you were with the business, then it'd be all good. Basically throwing a little lightweight fucking thing out there like, hey, homie, if, are you down to enter in contraband or are you down to work with the motherfucker, right? And Hector said he felt disrespected. Disrespected to the point Hector wanted to put hands on the dude. I've seen it. I've seen some COs feel like, hey, man, you're getting too over familiar with me. And then I've seen some COs be over familiar. That's just their thing. I've seen both parts of that puzzle, right? And ain't nothing better to a convict than an over familiar CO. It makes your time easier. I think it's pretty much more relaxed and better for everyone involved. But also, when you have a CO that goes straight by the book, who's just cool, but he doesn't have to be that cool, right, to bring shit in. But he's just a cool dude. He's doing his thing. He lets you kind of just do yours. That's good as well. People will respect that. The COs that are going above and beyond and making problems, well, they're going to cause problems for everyone else. And I could see where Hector would say, hey, man, he would see COs that were just a little too aggressive and they treated dudes like shit. And in turn, what happened? Motherfuckers got whacked. Motherfuckers got hurt. You know what I'm saying? One bad apple spoiled the whole damn bunch. Like a Donny Osmond song. It's just what it is. But anyway, so when Hector told that story, I could see how he felt. He was dedicated to his job. And, there was a lot of people that feel that Hector is basically whistleblowing. He's exposing the corruption but we need that. As someone who was a convict and ex-convict, it's just us against them. And we've always needed someone to be the voice of reason. Hector is one of them voices, man. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that feel the same way as Hector. They got into the job because they want to help, not hurt. But the CDC is not built that way. It's not built to rehabilitate anyone. It's built to tear you down. Anyways, I digress. When the end of hostilities happened, I knew immediately the CDCR was going to feel like it was a slap in the face when the judge said, man, that it was inhumane to fucking basically keep people on an indeterminate shoe program and that they needed to release these guys back into the yard. I was all for it. I felt the hunger strikes were performed perfectly. It was something that had to be done. I know that when the inmates are doing hunger strikes like that, I think there's one happening in Salinas Valley right now. I don't know if they're done with it, but it was happening just last week. The COs don't like it, okay, because it makes their job harder. They have to go through all these procedures and protocol that they have to do, checking weights and just a lot of the things that they have to do. They don't want to. There's been many times I've been in the yard, and this is something you guys could go to Hector Bravo's channel, Unhinged, and ask him this question. I can remember 3 times out of the 5 days a week or 7 days a week that we got yard, right? Not having yard because they were understaffed. That was always the excuse. We're not going to have yard release today because we're understaffed. Like what? Motherfuckers just don't come to work or what? We got to stay in prison, but they don't come to work. And that was never the case. They just didn't want to run yard. That crew felt like, hey, fuck these guys. Who cares if they don't come out of their cell all day? Who cares if they don't get no fresh air or program? I would think as a CO, you would think that the smoother that we let this program run, the smoother the yard's going to be. But sometimes they just don't want to do it. You can't change a lazy person. You can't do that. But that happened continuously a lot. Not at every prison, but at most. Facts, right? And then you see how the inmates can get disgruntled, get upset, want to go out there and lash out against the COs because they're feeling played. They're feeling like their fucking rights are being violated. Now, I know there's going to be people, well, they're locked up in prison. They ain't got nothing coming. The fact is they do. They do have a lot coming. And it's just inhumane to treat people inhumane. I remember getting into a conversation with a CO one time, and I told him, man, hey, being locked up is the punishment. You know what I'm saying? Not fucking what you're doing shouldn't be the punishment. We shouldn't be punished for being locked up. Locked up is the punishment. A lot of these COs, they look at you like you're a piece of shit or you're no good because you're locked up. They think they're better than you. There's even situations where women have came to visit prisoners and the COs try to get at them. Talking about, why are you with him? He's a piece of shit. He ain't no good. He's a gang member. Like just throwing salt in the game. Straight up dirty macking, right? I remember fucking a cop, man. He raided my homegirl, snatched me up, right? He was like, hey, bro, hook me up with her. Motherfucker, this is her house you're raiding. You think she want to fuck with you? Like, how am I going to hook you up, bro? You're a cop. Get away from me, right? Fucking unhook me up. Unhook me up, right? Shit. Motherfucker took me to county anyways. Talking about, hey, man, I'm going to go back and try to bone her. What? How the fuck am I getting ready? Well, you had it on you. Fuck, right? Anyways, that's just how it is. Anyways, when that end of hostilities happened, I knew they were going to be upset. Hector has said the same thing. This California model was put in place by Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, because he was looking at Norway, Sweden, their prison system and seeing how calm and how meticulous they are with the rehabilitation. He figured he'd put it in a dangerous ass, vicious, wild ass state like California, implement it and hope it did its thing. That was what we were told. That's not what was real. Okay. And Hector doubled down and explained it. And that's why they're calling him the whistleblower, because he's giving it to you from a direction of the CO's perspective. I'm telling you from the convict's perspective. No pun intended, right? When that happened, I knew immediately things were going to change in the CDC. When all these guys that were slammed back for decades were released to the yards, I knew 2 things were going to happen. One, the yards were going to start functioning up to par like a motherfucker, because these guys coming out ain't playing no games. They want that shit to function smooth. Because guess what smooth equals? Feria, right? Visitas, packages, comfort, social status of equality. If the yard is running smooth, everything is good for the COs and the convicts, right? If the yards are going off, there's no money in war. Nobody wants it. Not in prison. There's no money in war. You're just slammed down. All your shit's stripped out of your cell. It's hardship. It's a struggle, right? So I knew that was going to happen. And also what I knew was going to happen was CDCR was going to switch the game up because they were not going to allow these guys to come out and program and do the thing and get the shit lined up the way they wanted because they do not want them on the yard. When they're in the oil, that means there's better safety and security for them being on that yard. And that means they have the upper hand. They're running the program, right? And it was a slap in the face for the administration. So they want to slam these guys back. That's just the truth. So what they start doing, they implemented the California model and all these different rules started to change. They started to integrate people. They got these different types of yards, these integrated yards. And you look at, no matter what you do, you have general population and you have the SNY, which is another word for the protective custody. And you got a little bit of everything over there. You got the weirdos. You got the debriefers. You got the just righteous dropouts that just dropped out, man. And then you got the fucking dudes that, are over there because they got removed. And then you got guys that just gave up the ghost. Like, man, I'm cool. I'm not trying to do that no more. And there's just a whole bunch of different aspects to be on that yard. Them yards started to become dangerous in the 2000s. You started to see protective custody gangs come up. You started to see guys like Northern Riders and 2-5ers, gangs that have been around. They started to establish on these yards. You started to see people getting extorted, people getting fucked up, right? They knew this was going on. At the same time, GP is a little bit more mellow. When it's business time, it's business time. A level 4 180, it's always business time. When something happens, it happens, right? So the CDCR decided, you know what? If we start putting these SNY gang members and all these guys together, we know that the general population cannot function. So they're going to have to start cleaning house and going off. And it started with the Bulldogs. They put the Bulldogs on yards. They knew that the Bulldogs had been segregated from Norteños and Southsiders because of prison politics for years. They were the ones that segregated them because they knew this. There was lawsuits and all kinds of different things going on. And the CDCR knew this. So all of a sudden, because you got all these guys that beat them in a big old court case, now they're going to start trying to bring them out and let's integrate them. Pobrecito, the Bulldogs got to be the first ones to thrown out there, knowing that everyone is against them. But they went out there, no doubt about it. They didn't deny it or refuse it. They went out there and it cracked. And then it cracked again. And then you had Norteños that were non-active Northerners being put with general population Northerners, and it cracked. And Southsiders, the same thing. And it just continues because the whole procedure that's going on, this whole California model, is implemented for one thing and one thing only, to show the chaos, and how vicious it is, so that when they do go back to court, they can show the judge, look, man, we let these guys out and this is the chaos that they created. But no, really, just like Hector Bravo said, CDCR created it and they lost control. See, when you're back in my days, you do a pegada on the yard, which is a stabbing, right? You're going to the shoe, man. You know what I'm saying? If you don't get validated, which more than likely you probably would, because more than likely it's gang related within your own people, right? But say if you go to the Shidula 18-month, year, 2-year shoe, then you're released back out into a whole different prison yard. Sometimes you get a kick out to that yard, just depends. But you usually get a kick out to a different yard, and then the beat goes on, right? Nowadays, this new CDCR shit, they're just releasing them right out of the oil. They're not even getting a shoe term. They're going straight from administrative sig for a week or two, right back onto the yard, fight the charges on the yard. And these killers are killing people continuously. If there's no ramifications, you can't give a lifer more life. He only has one life to go, right? So it's crazy. And CDCR, they're not stopping. I seen a video, and it's a little touchy because it's a homie from my neighborhood. And I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory without saying too much, because I'm sure it's an ongoing investigation. But this homie from my neighborhood, he was a youngster. I didn't really know him. I know a little bit of his family, but I knew of him. Don't know him like that. Never kicked it with him. He was too young. And he's in Salinas Valley Prison at the time, and he's working the visiting room. And for whatever reason, something happens. Now, I know the story. It's not my story to put out, right? Because I got respect for his family. But something happens, and he gets on the wrong side of the norteño fucking threshold. Let's just say that. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. And there's a video of two individuals repeatedly stabbing him, right? And they put the knife in his eye, did all that. And these guys are seen with bone crushers this big continuously for, it looked like 2-3 minutes, just booking them. A little bit of mace, some rubber bullets were shot. The Mini 14 wasn't even racked. They allowed this to happen. This was just allowed to happen, man. COs had their eyes on it all the time, the whole time, and just allowed this. They could have saved this guy. Mini, boom, boom. He's alive, right? Or at least fucking he has a chance. Nope. You know what I'm saying? If I was the family, I'd be very, very interested in that video and very interested in what they got going on. But the fact is, this stuff is being allowed. They've lost control because they want to lose control, because at the end of the day, their whole thing is, and it's all crazy. It's like a chick that cheats on you, right? What do? You go fuck her sister, right? You go do something with one of her family members because you want to get her back. That's all CDCR is trying to get back. Anyways, Hector Bravo is, they're saying he's a whistleblower because he's exposing shit like that. But he's really not exposing a lot that we don't know. But the stories he does tell are very interesting. I want everyone to go tap in and go support that dude, man. I don't see him as a snitch, a rat, a whistleblower. I see him as a man who has dignity and pride and was doing a job for all the right reasons. And when he's seen a lot of the bullshit going on behind the scenes, he said, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. And he decided to make a YouTube channel and just explain his perspective. And of course, there's going to be people that are upset with them. Hey, bro, you're telling about our secrets. You turned your back on us. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like the gang stuff. You know, to me, it seems like Hector is the dropout CO, right? But that's just how I feel, man. I got a lot of respect for him. Again, man, if he goes back into the armed forces, hey, many blessings and prayers to that dude. I hope he gets what he wants in life. But go tap into his channel and go support and trip out on it. But that is the facts right there. I gave it to you, the facts, just like Hector did. That is why the California, all this craziness is happening, because ultimately they want to go back to court and they want to slam these dudes back in cages indefinitely. And will it happen? Hopefully not. You know, hopefully not. But all these violent, the way to win is to not give the CDCR what they want. They want violence. They want chaos. They want to prove to the judge that, look, these guys are all animals. They're brutal. They're animalistic. They don't know how to, you know, and I understand about the gang politics and how it has to be, but it's time for these vaulters to figure it out so that they win. You could be smarter than they are. You just have to show some type of canalismo and unity. They did it before. They could do it again. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in, the betterment of all people. I got another banger. If you want a banger like this, put a 2 in the chat. If you want a super, put a 1. And I got you guys. Bang, bang.